On January 2nd, President Trump ordered the attack on Major General Qasem Soleimani, a major terrorist and the head of the Quds Force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. He was killed along with 7 others as he arrived at the Baghdad airport. In this editorial, we will go over Wesley Smith's article in aclj.org. We will discuss who Soleimani was and what his responsibilities as a major general in Iran were. We will list out the main reasons why the United States felt compelled to take action. Lastly, we will explain why President Trump did not need congressional approval to do so.
Here are the key facts about this man who was responsible for the deaths of untold numbers of people around the world. Soleimani was the most powerful Iranian general. While other generals may have outranked him, as commander of the Quds forces, he answered only to Iran's supreme leader. His authority was outside the normal military chain of command in Iran and was given carte blanche authority to the export of terror around the world as he coordinated and directed the numerous Iranian militias and proxies worldwide. The Quds forces were responsible for assassinations, terrorism, and unconditional warfare that Iran exports and executes globally, including places like Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. He was the benefactor of Hamas and Hezbollah. He was linked to assassinations and assassination attempts in the US, Germany, India, and Argentina. He was also linked to the deaths of over 600 US service members in Iraq as he supplied enhanced improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, to the insurgency there. Thousands of US troops were wounded and maimed by these weapons. IRGC was responsible for 17% of all US casualties between 2003 and 2011. There has been a war on terror since September 11, 2001. Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism, and the Quds forces has been declared a terrorist organization. In war, a general officer of any enemy force is a legitimate military target. This was not an assassination. It was the killing of an enemy soldier in a war. According to Secretary of State Pompeo, he was not killed because of his past deeds, but because the U.S. became aware of planned attacks by Soleimani on U.S. personnel and others. The attacks were imminent. Because of this, President Trump was not required to notify Congress in advance. Under his Article 2 powers of the U.S. Constitution and in accordance to the War Powers Act, the President can take military action if a threat against the United States is imminent. The attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad were not mere demonstrations. They were coordinated attacks on the U.S. compound and its personnel directed by Soleimani and his Quds forces in coordination with Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq. Soleimani was also responsible for the deaths of hundreds of demonstrators in Iran as they protested against government corruption and a failing economy in Iran. Over the last several weeks, hundreds of Iraqi demonstrators were killed as they protested against Iranian influence in their own country and government corruption in Iraq. The use of live ammunition against these demonstrations in Iraq can also be traced back to Soleimani.
Wesley Smith goes on to say,
The events of the last several days are a reminder that there are evil people and terrorist forces who seek to do us harm. When they chant death to America and death to Israel, they truly mean it. Our nation's leaders and our men and women in the military have a solemn obligation and a constitutional mandate to protect America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We pray for our nation's leaders and our men and women in uniform.
So what are your thoughts? Was the United States justified in these attacks, or were they fully within their rights of self-defense per the War Powers Act? Please let us know in the comments below. If you like this content, please hit like and subscribe and share with your friends.